Welcome to the Value Pros Show, where Value Pros get value ready. Hi, my name is Bruce Scheer, the host of the Value Pros Show. In this episode, we're talking with David Svigel, fellow co-founder and business partner at valuepros.io. We're talking to him about a very important topic, a buyer-centric topic, how to rate your B2B buying experience. Now, David is a seasoned expert who works closely with clients to revolutionize their high-consideration B2B buying journeys. Together, we've been diving deep into creating a robust framework we call the B2B Buying Experience Index. This episode will unpack the critical dimensions of what makes a great buying experience, why it's more important than ever in 2025, and how companies can use this framework to drive growth and customer loyalty. Let's dive in. Well, David, thanks so much for joining the show. We're going to have some fun on this one. The title for this episode, How to Rate Your B2B Buying Experience. And David, I'm just so excited to get into this with you. I know we've been working on this so hard lately in framing up what we're calling a buying experience index. So we'll jump into that. But I guess to begin with, why is this so dang important? Why are we futzing and rotating so much onto the buying experience? Why is that so important, especially in 2025? Three really hard-hitting stats that we have, David. The first one is 75%. 75% of B2B buyers prefer to have a sales-free experience as dictated by Gartner. And that is just such a hard-hitting statistic. You know, something's not going right there. Secondly, 59%. So in the world that you and I live in, we're supporting our clients with their what I'd call high-consideration solutions. So maybe they're disruptive to the client environment. Maybe they're kind of expensive and multiple buyers have to vote in on them. Or maybe they're strategic, but they're high consideration. So for high consideration, bold buying decisions, 59% of the influence on the decision comes from the buying experience, not from the offering. The offering's only 41% of the decision-making influence. 59%, way more, is on the buying experience. And if that's good or bad, that influences the decision being made. Again, with high consideration deals, not low consideration. And then a final stat here, for high consideration solutions, 92% of those buying decisions need to be supported by a business case. So, David, let me review these stats with you just for a minute here. 75% of B2B buyers are saying, hey, seller, run, we don't want to be part of that situation. 59% of that buying decision is based above and beyond the offering on the experience itself. And then 92% of those buyers need a business case, which I know those sellers aren't providing, especially because 75% of B2B buyers don't want to interact with sales. Any observations, David, on these nasty stats?
Yeah, I mean, it's stuff I hear from, my clients all the time. And they're struggling to understand, what our buyers looking for. They think they know, and they think, well, we'll just, throw our sales process out there. But, buyers really want like trust and clarity and confidence and for the vendor to come across as a trusted vendor and, or a trusted advisor. And that's just not happening today. So, my clients are frustrated, buyers are frustrated. So it's really cool that we've got some good ideas on how to make this work for both sides.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just this catchphrase, I don't know if anybody here has seen Apollo. What was it? Apollo 13 or something like that, David? Or Houston, we have a problem. We need to get that rocket ship back to Earth. We've got a problem. And we've got a problem here with the buying experience. And that's why we're so, obsessed with it right now, David, and helping clients and helping people kind of look at the world from the buyer's perspective, the buyer experience perspective. And so business partner Darren Fleming and we did another episode I'd encourage everybody to check out, talking about the total value experience. And, we kind of broke that down, the difference between a low total value experience and a high total value experience and what gets in the way. So that's just talking about the total value experience, and that's the cumulative impact that the go-to-market team, the revenue team, has at each critical step of the buying journey. That's what we're calling the total value experience. But how do we measure for that? How do we get our heads around how are we doing in delivering that buying experience? And David, that's where we put together this B2B buying experience index. So these are some really tangible dimensions where we can measure ourselves on what kind of buying experience are we delivering? Is it good, bad? How do we understand that? So we've created some measurable dimensions and formulated, again, the B2B buying experience index. And this is research backed. We've used all the AI tools, including Google Gemini's deep research and ChatGPT, et cetera. Just triangulating around all the different studies that have been B2B buying studies, and what are the factors, what in this instance we're calling the pillars, that make up for how we measure against the B2B buying experience. So this is our framework, David, and we've got, it's aligned along the buying journey in 4 key phases of that buying journey, where they need to gain trust in the vendor or the solution provider and make sure it's trustworthy to proceed. They need to work with that vendor to clarify requirements. They need to frame value because they actually need to understand the value themselves, and they need to sell that value internally so they can buy said solution. And again, 92% of these buyers need a business case in order to do that. And then finally, the final phase is they want to accelerate impact, and they want vendor support, solution provider support to make sure they're getting impact and they're getting it fast. So they get through all the contracting and all that nonsense, but they demonstrate real value and confirm to themselves that they made the right decision. Most B2B buyers, literally upon signing the contract, David, they have buyer's remorse because they weren't clear in the value that they expected to receive. They weren't clear in the solution itself, and they have no mechanisms for proving they made the right decision. Hence, they've got buyer remorse. And when buyers have remorse, are they going to buy again? Probably not. They're going to ditch that contract, especially if it's a software as a service type of play or something like that, and an easy switch to something else. But this is our framework, David. Any observations at a top level before we kind of dig into it?
I think it's important to note it needs to be, a holistic experience. So buyers and sellers need to both invest in creating that unforgettable buyer journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So in our model, we've got these 10, what we call buying experience pillars that line up underneath each one of these phases. So I thought what we'd do, David, let's go ahead phase by phase and just kind of unpack these pillars and talk about them in terms of what it is and why it's important and how B2B sellers and vendors can do a better job of improving the buying experience against each one of these pillars. So let's start with gain trust, and we'll just go one by one, David, and kind of unpack these. So on gaining trust, our first B2B buying experience pillar is trust and transparency. So, how trustworthy are we showing up, either from a digital to human perspective, from website, for example, to that buyer, or from G2 or other reputable types of reference sites? How are we showing up digitally to that buyer, and then also personally, with our people? How trustworthy are we as we show up, and transparent? do the buyers believe that there's a degree of transparency where what they're going to learn from this vendor is going to be trustworthy because there's a degree of transparency? David, do you want to talk to us just a little bit about why that's important, then how vendors could be thinking about this?
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, trust and transparency. I mean, it's the real currency that how you measure the relationship you have with your buyer. And to me, it's simple. Just be forthright, upfront, share timelines, share expectations. Just tell your buyer whether it's good or bad. Just tell them what's going on. Don't try to hide stuff that's just gonna take you down a bad path. So just think forthrightness is the way to go.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just having, content there that's credible, trustworthy, especially with the digital to human perspective, of course, your case studies and value studies and things like that. But just, where there's a degree of transparency and content to help and just showing up right. So that's the trust and transparency dimension, that pillar of the B2B buying experience. Next, educational value. So, the definition around this is, are you educating the customer on, the problem that they might have, or, why they should even be considering interacting with you, said B2B vendor or solution provider? Is there educational value where your buyer would perceive that, hey, that piece of content that I read from, that perhaps the marketing department produced, or that conversation I just had, was there real insight, real educational value in that? That's, again, one of these critical buying experience pillars for that B2B buying experience. Tell us a little bit more why that's important, David, and how do we do that?
For sure, Bruce. So I think, people in general have a knowledge mindset, and they want to feel empowered and informed and confident that they're ready to make a decision. So, sellers that are focused on selling instead of educating are at a disadvantage. There's a real opportunity for sellers to help their buyers learn about the solution, about, we just talked about the process and the expectations. And that's going to go a long way to creating that exceptional buying experience.
Yeah, too true. Too true. Well, let's move on, David, to the third pillar here for the B2B buying experience, and that's emotional connection. So, this is emotional connection from brand to buyer. This is emotional connection, critically for these high consideration B2B buying solutions. It's from a revenue team and a seller perspective, be it the seller, be it somebody from marketing, product sales engineering, be it somebody from success that's involved in that buying journey. But, are you able to create this emotional bond? And how are you doing against this pillar? Why is that important, David? And then how can people think about going about doing this?
Yeah, well, so I mean, buyers, fundamentally, of course, are no different than anybody else. Everyone wants to feel that they're heard, they're connected, they're understood. It's just human nature to have those emotions, and sellers can get there by just building rapport, by listening to their buyers. You can learn so much more by listening to what your buyer is saying than just going down some pre-canned spiel that you rehearsed, and just disregarding the buyer and just like, oh, these are the 100 words I need to say to close this deal. And it just doesn't work like that.
Oh, I am telling you, not listening to respond. And we've got an upcoming episode, David, with a person that just wrote a book on listening, and he founded an improv theater and place here in Seattle, Washington. And gosh, to do great improv, you have to be, one of the best listeners in the world. And he kind of breaks that down for the world of B2B marketing and sales that we live in. So, but yeah, as you say, so absolutely critical just to build that emotional bond. Listening is such a key factor that people don't focus on. So thanks for highlighting that. So those are the kind of the three key pillars under gain trust. Just trust and transparency, educational value, and then emotional connection. Let's next talk about clarifying requirements. So, you kind of won that battle. You've gained some trust. Now we're moving deeper into that buying journey and buying experience and clarifying requirements. So let's talk about those. We've got one of those buying experience pillars under clarifying requirements would be personalized experience. So what that means is you're really not just doing cookie cutter, but you're really doing your best effort to understand that customer, their needs, and playing to that and how you communicate and the information you serve up, et cetera, the conversations you have, they're highly personalized to the context of that buyer. David, why is that important, and ideas for how to do this?
Yeah, so for sure, one size fits all is just going to alienate your buyer. It's the opposite of what you're trying to do. You want to create that personal connection. As I just said, you get to that by listening to people and to understanding what they're saying. Paying attention to what their requirements are, what their goals are, and weaving that into the relationship that you're building with them. So, it could be industry specific challenges, role specific challenges, and recognizing and responding to those is critically important.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also I'd argue, David, just really having really great context about that customer. And maybe it's a new prospect and you need to use your AI tools, et cetera, to do some fabulous homework to show up what we call value ready, but really understanding their context. Or maybe that account and it's repeat visit because you want to sell them something new and help them along their journey in different ways. But really understanding their context and personalizing to their context. I used to do, a little over $1 million a year of consulting with the Hewlett Packard, but I knew their world so well. I knew the executives and what they cared about, and some of the people I was serving, some of the buyers. I'd go, oh, this executive, this is really important to them. And I was able to personalize because I had just a high degree of context, personalized context to bring into those, buying and selling conversations. So just absolutely critical to do that versus just showing up products first and generically, as you state. So David, let's talk about solution clarity now. This is one of the other buying experience pillars. And what this means is just really making sure the customer has enough context around the solution to clearly see it for what it is, managing their expectations for what it is and what it isn't, but they understand that, and you've done enough grounding with them. It doesn't have to be understanding all 160 features, but enough clarity where they've got comfort and confidence that they understand what it is that they're considering. David, any thoughts around why that's important and how to do this?
Yeah, clarity is so key. If you're overly complex in your interactions, in the information you're presenting, in the information you're trying to teach to your buyer, the retention's just not there. So complexity is a turnoff. So you just want to have a compelling narrative that connects the dots between what the buyer's objectives are and what your solution could do from them. It's really simple. Just be crystal clear in how your solution can solve their problems and strip the complexity out of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And even, there's a big theme right now in the market, but just doing fantastic discovery and then mapping back with the solution, how it solves, like David, as you're saying, those acute problems that they see in their context need to be solved for, and making that connection really super clear. So perfect. So we hit on those 2 points, and that was under clarify requirements. Now we'll move on to the next critical part of the buying journey, and which we're calling that phase, frame value. So we've got 2 buying experience pillars that just need to be nailed to do this properly. So the first one is value articulation and quantification, this pillar. And this is pretty self-explanatory, but just doing a beautiful job of explaining the value from an acute communication standpoint, but then also taking the next step to quantify that value. And all this, of course, is going to roll into helping that buyer, the 92% of those buyers that require it, to have a business case so they can do their internal selling for you. David, thoughts about why this is important and how to do it?
Yeah, this is, the bread and butter stuff that every sales rep should be striving towards. But, sadly at times everyone's not quite there yet, but you need to, have your buyers understand the value and believe in the value that your solution can deliver. And you can do that through things like ROI tools or case studies, even success stories you've had with similar clients. So there might not be a case study sitting in your tool bag, but you can still have the conversation with your buyer, companies similar to yours, here's how I help them. So it's just really, communicating that value, which then becomes the cornerstone for the trust and the confidence and places you in the trusted advisor role that you really should covet in your relationship with buyers.
Oh, I love what you're saying there. I absolutely love it. Some 2 stats that are, just a little over a year old, I think. But one of them is 87% of B2B buyers expect to be interacting with a trusted advisor. And then 88% of B2B buyers will only buy from somebody who they perceive as a trusted advisor. And I like how you tied that, David, back to this importance of value articulation and quantification. That, you do that well, you are a trusted advisor. So, and which is expected and required to help that customer buy from you. So, David, let's talk about one more here, and that's confidence and risk mitigation. So as it relates to the buying experience pillar of confidence and risk mitigation, what this means is you're instilling confidence and you're minimizing or taking away risk as part of the buying decision. And David, you just talked about, loading up the value proposition, quantifying that, and having some evidence around that. But I think that really helps here too. What would you have to add to this?
Yeah, I mean, so we're talking, high consideration deals. So there's risk, right? And you need to, instill that confidence in buyers that they're making the right decisions. So we talked about it earlier. Educate your buyer, inform them, help them feel confident that they're making the right decision. Use customer testimonials if you need to. Rely on market research, Magic Quadrant. Maybe your solution's represented in the Magic Quadrant. So use that to your advantage. Use that information. Try to assure your buyers that they're making the right decision at this point.
I love it. Yeah, and that social proof, as you're highlighting, is just so absolutely critical, making sure that, the management team sees what are the potential risk areas. So in the business case that's being shaped, you do want to show potential risks and being really clear and upfront and transparent with the buying committee about that as part of the business case, but then also have ideas for how to overcome those risks, and also some social proof of others that have had success. I think that all flows into building up this confidence and making sure you're taking the wind out of some of those risk areas that might get in the way of buyers buying from you. So I think we hit that, David, on framing value. And again, this is just flyover to do it right. Easy to say, not so easy to do. You got to do this right, and that's why top B2B sellers are earn their paycheck, of course. But then the fourth phase here is accelerate impact. And let's unpack some of those key pillars for the buying experience for accelerating impact. The first one's collaboration and partnership. So what this means is How would the buyer rate you on your collaboration and partnership with them? Were you responsive? Were you, really kind of two peas in a pod, really tight at the hip, working together to shape that value, shape that buying experience, help that buyer buy more easily from you in that spirit of collaboration, co-constructing the value proposition and that partnership, showing that commitment to win. So that's the definition. But David, any thoughts on why that's important and how to approach this?
Yeah, so it goes back to something I said at the very beginning. The buying journey needs to be an investment by both parties. So buyers need to engage and participate, and sellers likewise need to engage and participate to create the open dialogue that's required to, as you said, Bruce, co-create the value narrative, co-create the solution. What's the best answer here? So it's not a process of one person or one side of the buying experience dominating here. It really needs to be collaboration to achieve alignment.
Cool. Well stated. Well stated. So let's hit on a few others. The next buying pillar would be process efficiency. And so how was the buying process? Was there much friction in the process, or were there things missed that derail the whole thing? For example, you get all the way, get ready to, you create a contract, and then the question comes up: have we gone through information security? No. And then, oh my God, then lose another month, and things that we could, the revenue team and the buyer could have gotten in front of, and they didn't. Just how efficient and effective was that buying journey, the buying process? That's what this means. David, help us understand the importance and how to do this.
Yeah, so I mean, buyers are just really looking for simplicity and for sellers to outline for them what needs to be done next. So we talked about communicating expectations. It's critical. You don't want the last minute proverbial monkey wrench thrown into the deal. So like you said, Bruce, get out in front of it, be proactive, and collaboratively figure out what the next steps are and make it simple for your buyer is really what it boils down to. It's just making it simple.
Love it. Love it. All right, David. Well, let's round the corner here. This is our final pillar of the B2B buying index and how to rate ourselves against it. And that's the post-sale commitment. Now, David, we have another episode of the Value Pro Show, and it's talking about first impact. And so what this means, post-sale commitment, is making sure things are getting installed and set up and people are adopting, and so you're assimilating the solution in the context of the buyer's universe, that organization. But even more so, you are also helping your buyer demonstrate value, confirm they made the right decision to buy from you. And that's what we call first impact. So identifying something that's measurable and then measuring against that, maybe, a quarter, a couple of months after they've, signed contract and you've started to implement, they're getting an indication of success and the value that's being promised. That's what this means, post-sale commitment. David, any thoughts on why that's important and how to go about this?
Yeah, I mean, just, buyers react so favorably if they hear from the seller. Like you said, 2 months later, like, oh my gosh, I never thought you'd call to see how we're doing. We've had these challenges and these successes. So, sellers can work to help resolve the challenges and celebrate the successes. And the real value there is you're just building a loyal customer that's going to become an advocate for you. And that's just crucial to your, personal sales success, is having buyers advocate for you.
I love it. Love it. Well, David, this has been a fun one. We've covered a lot of ground here. I'll swing back to the framework itself. just to anchor any other observations or thoughts that we want to share with our audience. But, just the buying experience index, 10 key pillars that we have under 4 key phases. And, it's a way to rate yourself against the buying experience you're providing to your buyers. And so, you provide a better buying experience, people are going to buy more and more often, and certainly less discounting pressure, faster sales cycles, a lot of different benefits of getting this right. And we talked a lot about the benefits in the episode that Darren Fleming and I did on total value experience. So I'd encourage everybody to check that out. But this is a rubric or where you can truly measure how are you doing against these 10 critical buying experience dimensions. And I haven't seen anything like this in the market, David. I don't know if you have as well, but I think we're cutting into some new territory here where we're going to help some of our B2B clients with high consideration solutions think more deeply and act more deeply against the buying experience that they're providing. And these are 10 dimensions as kind of guideposts or pillars to help them move towards and do a better job against. Any other thoughts you have, David, just in summary thoughts about this?
Yeah, I think it's so important that, product marketers and sales enablement leadership and revenue teams recognize that, it's not the solution that is going to fuel your growth. It's the buying experience that's going to fuel growth. And it needs to be an investment by all parties involved. So everyone needs to engage and align and communicate in transparent and simple ways. And that's really the key to success.
I like what you say. And gosh, if you're intrigued on this, everybody listening or watching, we have another episode featuring Scott Pressey, one of our affiliates, on the connected revenue, that whole function, how everybody across success, product, marketing, and sales, if that's connected well, it'll really juice this buying experience and you'll score so much better against these dimensions when everybody's working in concert. So definitely check out that other episode on connected revenue with Scott Pressey. I hope you'll love that too. Well, David, just in conclusion, thanks for walking through all this with us, and that was really helpful. What an enlightening conversation with David Svigel about transforming the B2B buying experience. We learned about the B2B Buying Experience Index, a powerful framework to measure and improve the buyer journey across the key phases where buyers form impressions about us, from gaining trust to clarifying their requirements, to framing the value so they can sell internally, to accelerating impact so they are grateful versus remorseful about the buying decision they made with us. One of the biggest takeaways for me was the statistic that 59% of the buying decisions for high consideration solutions hinge on the buying experience, not just the offering. This really drives home the point that the experience we create as marketers, sellers, and product leaders can be a bigger differentiator than the product itself. Think about that for a while. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe to the Value Pro Show. And if you're feeling kind, leave a review so others can find and enjoy it too. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.